Hey YouTube, Common Collector here, and today I am bringing you guys my budget version of Virtual World. So this is a really great deck that came out in Phantom Rage and has been doing really great in all of the competitive events that have been happening online and a few in person. So overall, Virtual World is considered a top tier deck, and it's really cool that we do have the opportunity to play this top tier deck in a budget version. Basically, you're just not playing stuff like Triple Tactical Talents and some of those other more expensive cards. So overall, you can really mess around with this in a budget version. So I am going to be doing the deck profile a little bit differently and sort of flushing everything out all at once to sort of show you guys, for those of you who don't really understand how Virtual World works, that way you guys get a really good understanding of the whole deck. Lastly, if you guys wouldn't mind going and checking out my Patreon and as well as like my Instagram and Facebook links down in the description below, I would really appreciate it, as well as subscribing to the channel and liking the video as always. But without further ado, let's get on with this Virtual World deck profile. So starting off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Virtual World Nyan Nyan. So this is a really interesting card because this is the only Virtual World card that actually really interacts this way. But when a level 3 monster is normal or special summon your side of the field while this is in your graveyard, you can special summon this from the graveyard, which is really nice. So like I said, it does, none of the other Virtual Worlds do this to special summon themselves from the graveyard. However, this is just a really nice extender. And then also when this card gets banished, you can then take one of your other banished cards and then you put it back into the deck, which is really great because we do have certain cards in this deck that we do not want banished but end up sometimes getting banished. So that's why it is really nice to be playing the 3 copies of Nyan Nyan. Everything from the Virtual World strategy that came out in Phantom Rage is played in 3 of, so that's why we're doing the deck profile this way. So then we're going to go on into the 3 copies of Lulu. This is going to be your most expensive card of the deck, sitting at about $15 to $16 right now, which is still really good. So this card is a Psychic Tuner, so keep in mind that this deck works with tuners and non-tuners. So your Nyan Nyan is not a tuner, but I also forgot to mention that when it special summons itself from the graveyard, it becomes a tuner. So for that reason, you need to be mindful of which cards are tuners, which are not. So with your Lulu, with this card, you can target one Virtual World card that you control, and then you pitch one card of a different type. So you have your monster, spell, and trap types. So if you're targeting another Virtual World monster on the field, then you send a spell or trap, and then you special summon this to the field, and then if you do that, then you get to add one of the 3rd type from your deck to your hand. So if you send a spell to the graveyard, then you're going to be adding a trap from your deck to your hand, which is really nice. Then we have sort of its counterpart is 3 copies of the Virtual World Lily. So with Lily, it basically works exactly like your Lulu. However, the 3rd card is also sent to the graveyard. So instead of it adding the 3rd card to your hand, you're going to be pitching the 3rd card to the graveyard as well as your 2nd card. So again, if you're going for a monster on the field, then you pitch a spell to the graveyard, and then you special summon this, and then also you would then pitch a trap to the graveyard. However, the 3rd effect is optional, so you don't have to do that. But just for your graveyard setup, most of the time it will be sort of prevalent to do that. Then we're going to go on into our 3 copies of Lao Lao. So what Lao Lao does, this is again a level 6 tuner. So you got to keep in mind that you have your Lily, which is level 6 non-tuner, and then now you have a tuner level 6 of the Lao Lao. So with this card, this one interacts really differently, that when you special summon it, again, you send one card from your deck to your graveyard, and then you special summon a monster from your graveyard, which is really nice. The best plays to really do this with is whatever is going to extend you into a really good rank 6 XZ play, or into a level 9 synchro play, which is just really nice that you can sort of set up your graveyard, and you can do a little bit of extra setup for your Nyan Nyan. That way you can bring that back onto the field at some point. You just got to keep in mind that these 2 are both going to be tuners if that happens. So just keep all of that stuff in mind, that you're generally going to be wanting to bring back maybe your level 3 non-tuner, which is your Juju. So with your Juju or Dwee, I'm not really sure. Like, these cards have such ridiculous names. So with your Jui, what you do is, you target another virtual world card on the field. So for example, this time, let's say that you're targeting a spell, then you would send either a monster or a trap to the graveyard. And then this is sort of like the Skarm of the deck. So instead of getting the advantage right away, you are going to be adding a virtual world monster from your graveyard to your hand during the end phase. So you just want to keep all of that stuff in mind. So now we're not totally done with the monsters yet, but we are done with the virtual world monsters. So again, I just want to go over what is all of the constants in the deck and what you're not really ever going to be changing out. So for now, everybody is basically playing 3 copies of the Virtual World City Kowloon. This is a really crazy spell card because with this card, you can place one other Virtual World Gate card from your deck. So those are going to be your spell or your trap card. So we'll get to those in a minute. So basically, you activate one of the spell or the trap cards, and then depending on however many of the Virtual World Gate cards that you have on the field, you get to activate effects. So if you have 2 or more Virtual World Gate cards, then all of your Virtual World monsters you control gain 200 attack for the rest of this turn. If you have 3 or more, then you send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard, which is really awesome. Basically like a Dante effect, just to mill the top 3 cards of your deck. You can set up really great plays, like again with your Nyan, because you always want to get that into the graveyard. And then also, if you have 4 or more on the field, so your whole spell and trap zone is basically going to be filled with your Virtual World Gate cards, then you can special summon up to 4 Virtual World monsters with different names from your extra deck, which is really, really awesome because we have 5 really great targets for this. So we'll kind of get to all of those again a little bit later. So overall, this Kowloon is just really awesome for getting some really big plays. You generally don't get off that, obviously, like that 4+ effect. It's not going to happen every single duel, but on your certain occasions, like if you're in like a really big grindy duel against something like Mystic Mine or something, it really can come up. So then we're going to go on into our Virtual World Gate Qinglong. So with the Qinglong, it is a continuous spell card, and then you, when you activate this, you banish once per turn, you can banish a Virtual World card from your graveyard, and then you target a face-up monster on the field and negate its effects, which is really great just to sort of get a blanket negate on one of your opponent's monsters every single turn. Then it also just sets up your banish pile because we want to get a lot of things banished for our Virtual World Gate Chuchi. So with the Chuchi, when you activate this card, you can target one face-up card on the field and then shuffle 2 of your banished Virtual World cards with different names back into the deck and then destroy that card. So basically once per turn you're getting a monster negate as well as a card destruction, which is really awesome. So we do have built in the deck card destruction as well. So then also with the Qinglong, when this is set up in your graveyard, you can banish this from the graveyard and then add a Virtual World monster, and then you have to discard a card, which seems like a bit of a downside. However, it's just really nice for getting that specific card to your hand. Usually I go for like the Lulu because Lulu can gain you extra advantage into your hand, as well as if you have like a Nyan in your hand, then you can just sort of discard that to get it set up in the graveyard. Or another really great target is just to discard your Psyframe Driver, which we will get to in a minute. Then with our Chuchi, when this card is set up in your graveyard, you can banish this to target one of your virtual worlds and then either increase its level or rank or decrease its level or rank by 3 until the end of the turn, which is really nice because, again, we have all level 3 and level 6 monsters in the deck. So it just really helps you to sort of manipulate your levels to get the exact play you need, whether you're going for big rank 3, rank 6, or big Synchro 6, or going into a Synchro 9 monster is just really, really great. So that's it for all of the Virtual World cards, but we're still going to kind of keep going on for the cards that are basically like staples for this deck. So you have your general 24 cards that are in the deck, and then there's also going to be an additional handful of cards. So we're going to go on into the Psyframe package. So overall, like, this seems a little bit risky at first. However, when you realize that whenever you use your Gamma to banish Then with the driver, when the driver gets banished, then you have your Nyan Nyan, which is going to be able to recycle that driver back into your deck. So that means that your Psyframe Gear Gamma is basically free, which is really, really amazing. So that's why it is like the best hand trap in the deck. Then just speaking of also generic hand traps, we want to be running 3 copies of Ash Blossom. This is just pretty standard in basically any deck right now. So right now, Ash Blossom is still very, very good. Then for just more cards that basically anybody is playing, we're going with 2 copies of Pot of Desires. If you want to bump this up to 3, you can. However, I just still like it at 2 in this deck. Overall, it just works really great at 2, and you're hardly ever going to draw into that second copy off of the Desires. And again, just sort of to reiterate, your Nyan Nyan can still add cards back into the deck that are banished face down. So if you do end up banishing your driver face down, or just any of your other really important cards, you can always use your Nyan Nyan to recycle those cards back, which is really, really amazing. Basically, the Psyframe package in here is completely free because of the Nyan Nyan. Then our next most expensive card is going to be 1 copy of Emergency Teleport. If you guys cannot afford Emergency Teleport, you can just sub this out for your 3rd copy of Desires, or even if you don't want to play a 3rd Desires, you can just play Upstart Goblin. It's really up to you, up to your player preference. Then just as another extender, I like 3 copies of Psychic Tracker, because one thing I always found in testing was that I always had too many tuners on the field, because again, your Nyan Nyan turns itself into a tuner when it brings itself back to the field. So I found it really beneficial to have Psychic Tracker in the deck, because if you have a level 3 monster on the field other than itself, then you can special summon Psychic Tracker directly from the hand, which just helps you to extend some of your plays. So if you have like Nyan Nyan sitting on the field, then you can just special summon the Psychic Tracker, and then right there you have either a rank 3 play, or if this is being treated as a tuner, or if you have your tuner Lulu, my bad. If you have Lulu on the field, then you can just go into a really nice level 6 synchro play. Then 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone, just because we have a lot of monster negation in here, but we want to get rid of as many spell and traps as we can. 1 copy of Called by the Grave, because this is like a combo deck, and this deck can play through Disruption, but we'd like to avoid it if we can. Then for our final card, we have 1 copy of Monster Reborn, just to round off this 40 card deck. So once again, basically this whatever it would be 34 cards is basically pretty consistent between all decks, and then what you're basically doing with the last 6 cards is completely up to you. But this is what I found to be the most consistent for me, and for sort of going on a $100 budget. So for the extra deck, we are playing, of course, the 1 copy of Shen Shen. So with Shen Shen, while this card is on the field, any card that is sent from the field to the graveyard gets banished instead, which is really amazing. This can hurt a lot of decks. It's just really cool to sort of get that Macrocosmos-like effect just right out of the extra deck. It's really, really amazing. Then also, when one of your monsters battles, then once per turn, you can take 1 monster from either player's banish zone and then put it back into the graveyard, which is doesn't come up that often. However, if there's something like your Nyan Nyan that you want to put back into the graveyard, or if your opponent's playing something that you don't want them to have banished and you would prefer it in the graveyard, there's certain instances where that can come up. Then also, if this card is in the graveyard, when you have monsters with different attributes and different types, then you can banish 2 of them and then special summon this card back from the graveyard, which is really nice, because if you're going for rank 9 plays, which obviously we're playing True King of All Calamities with this deck. So if you're trying to go into True King of All Calamities and you just needed that other level 9 synchro, this is just a really great way to do it. So again, you just need monsters with different type and different attributes. So generally, you have your Psychic Wind monsters are your female-looking cards, and then you have the animals, which are your Earth Worms. So just keep all of that stuff in mind. Then we're going to be going on into our 1 copy of the Jui, and this card's artwork is so cool. I just sort of realized today that it's like a bird. I had such a tough time figuring out what I was actually looking at. I mean, all of these cards are just so crazy, but the artwork is just totally sick on these things. So this is going to be your level 6 synchro for the deck. So what Jui does is that When you have monsters that two or more monsters in your graveyard with the same type and attribute but different names, then this card cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. And then you can take two of the same such cards with different type and attribute, and then you can banish them from the graveyard in order to send one card that your opponent controls to the graveyard, which is just nice for a little bit of extra removal. Then going on into the XZ monsters, we have the one copy of Virtual World Shell Jaja. This card is really great right now because this is for any deck that can play rank 3s. This is generic and is a really great way to get rid of Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. So with this card, you can do 2 or more level 3 monsters. So it's nice that you can kind of go up higher in your XZ materials. So once per turn, detach material and then target a face-up monster that you control. It cannot be destroyed by battle until the end of your opponent's turn. And then once per turn during damage calculation, if this attacks a monster and basically doesn't destroy it by battle, then you can just banish that monster instead. So it's non-targeting and non-destruction removal, which is really, really amazing right now. For the last two, we have the one copy of Long Long and one copy of Fan Fan. So overall, the Long Long, you really don't use it that often. This is probably the one that I would cut the most, but I just sort of wanted to play all 5 of them. But basically what Long Long does is it's just once per turn is a quick effect monster negate, which is okay. I wish that there was more quick effects in this deck overall, but overall it's still pretty good. Then with the one Fan Fan, basically with this card you can detach material to banish one face-up card that your opponent controls, as well as one card in either player's graveyard. So this is really great just for some spot removal, again non-destruction, but it does target, so that is sort of a downside. So this is not a card to get rid of Dragoon or anything like that, but overall Fan Fan's pretty good. And then also it replaces itself when it gets destroyed, which is always nice. We have the one copy of Coral Dragon, just a really nice extender. It's a synchro tuner and then also helps you draw a card when it leaves the field, which is really awesome. We have the one copy of Stardust Charge Warrior. This card just got reprinted in the Maximum Gold series, which is really great. So when this card is synchro summoned, you get to draw a card. So in the extra deck, we actually have like 3 cards that are used for drawing cards. So we have the Coral Dragon, which draws you a card when it leaves the field. We have the Stardust Charge Warrior, which draws a card when it's summoned, as well as the Ravenous Croc Dragon. So when Ravenous Croc Dragon is summoned, you get to draw cards equal to the number of non-tuners used to summon it. So if you do go sort of like with a Trishula form of summoning, so you use like 3 level 3 monsters, then that'll allow you to draw 2 cards. Then also with this, as a quick effect, you can discard 2 cards to target a card on the field and destroy it, which is pretty cool. I also should mention that your Stardust Charge Warrior can also attack all special summoned monsters that your opponent controls, which is really great. The only downside is that he only has 2,000 attack, so he does have his moments where he's really amazing. He's basically like the invoked Purgatrio for the deck, which is just really, really cool. Then one copy of the Trishula Dragon of the Ice Barrier. This is sort of something that you really don't need to play. If you do have the money, you can obviously play like the Divine Arsenal AA Zeus, but for this budget version, I had to just sort of get creative. Also, like another good one is the Yang Zing monster that everyone's playing with this deck as well. Then we have the one copy of Vermilion Dragon Mech, just for some extra spot removal. One copy of Cloud Castle. This card is amazing in here. So when this card is synchro summoned, then you can target a level 9 monster in your graveyard and special summon it back to the field, which is really, really cool because that means that if you've already tried to go into your True King of All Calamities and your opponent disrupts your plays, then on your following turn, then you just go into Cloud Castle and then bring back whatever level 9 synchro that you had out on the field before, and then you have your 2 materials right there. So then for the last of the XZ monsters, we have the number 39 Utopia Beyond. This is your rank 6 monster, which is going to be really great for when this card is summoned, you take all of your opponent's monsters that are on the field and make their attack 0, which is just really great, especially if you can also get into your Stardust Charge Warrior. That just really helps you to really blow out the board and deal a lot of damage, which is really cool. We have the one copy of Constellar Ptolemy M7. This card is just really nice. It's also super duper budget. Basically, this whole extra deck is budget, which is really amazing. So your Constellar Ptolemy, Basically what this does is that it can bounce extra stuff to the hand, either from the field or the graveyard, which is really cool. Then we have our 2 copies of True King of All Calamities. If you don't think that you're going to end up going into 2 copies of True King of All Calamities, you can definitely play around with some other of the level 9 synchros, or whatever you really want. Another really good option is like the level 3, like the rank 3 Bamboozle guy. Like, he's really good. But overall, guys, that's going to do it for this budget deck profile. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. It's been really fun playing around with Virtual World. It's probably my, I mean, next to like the Burning Abyss support that we got in Phantom Rage for like, Phantom Knights and whatnot, this is definitely like my next favorite deck that came out. Mutants was also really fun to play around with, but yeah, Virtual World is just sort of on a level of its own. It's probably like, next to Harpies, it's probably my favorite sort of toolbox deck, because this deck, along with like Harpies, you can play just like all of these cards in the extra deck that just have so many different effects. You get stuff that can attack all of your opponent's monsters, and stuff for just really simple removal. So that was what really drew me into playing Harpies, because of like your Ice Beast Zero Fine and your Lightning Chidori and a whole bunch of other stuff. Overall, the nature of Virtual World is really cool, and it's going to be really fun to see how this deck progresses in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching the deck profile. Again, please hit that subscribe button if you guys haven't already, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.